This is a reading of Understanding Greek Myths, pages 16 through 23. This chapter is called The Natural World. The ancient Greeks thought that there was a supernatural explanation for the world around them. They believed that the gods shaped the land and created all the plants and creatures that lived there. Even natural disasters were thought to be the result of the actions or anger of the gods. The majority of people living in ancient Greece made their living by farming. They relied on the gods to provide good soil and good weather to grow and harvest their crops. Farming was difficult in ancient Greece. The soil was not very fertile, and much of the land was mountainous. In the small pockets of flat lands, they mainly grew olives, grapes, and grains, such as wheat and barley. With these crops, they were able to make oil, wine, and bread. Several times a year, the people held festivals in honor of Demeter, the goddess of the harvest. The people prayed to Demeter before the ground was plowed, when the seed started to sprout, and after a good harvest. If you see the picture at the bottom, it says Greek farmers used teams of oxen to draw a wooden plow through the ground in this sculpture from as in the sculpture from ancient Greece. Demeter and Persephone. The ancient Greeks believed that the changing of seasons and annual cycle of growth, harvest, and rest were the results of the kidnapping and release of Persephone, Demeter's daughter. Zeus's sister Demeter was the goddess of the harvest. When she was happy, the crops flourished. When she was upset, the crops died. The thing that made her happiest was spending time with her daughter, Persephone. Persephone was very beautiful, and she caught the eye of the god Hades in the underworld. One day, when she was in the meadow, he opened a great hole in the ground and kidnapped her. Demeter was heartsick. All the crops began to fail, and Zeus became worried. He tried to make Hades send Persephone back. Hades refused, saying that she had eaten 6 pomegranate seeds. Everyone knew that if you ate or drank anything in the underworld, you had to stay there forever. Zeus made a deal with Hades. If Persephone married Hades, she would spend 6 months of the year with him in the underworld and 6 months on the earth with her mother Demeter. Hades agreed. While Persephone lived with her mother above ground, Demeter was happy, and the seeds sprouted and the crops grew. When she returned to the underworld, Demeter cried, and all the plants died until Persephone returned. In the green box, it says a range of roles. Demeter was in charge of fertility as well as harvest. Women prayed to her to bless them with children. Demeter also became known as the goddess of marriage. On the right, you see a vase. This two-handled amphoria or jar shows Greek farmers harvesting olives. Chilon. Chilon was a beautiful young nymph whose behavior resulted in her becoming the very first tortoise. Chilon lived in a lovely home on a riverbank. When Hermes delivered an invitation to the wedding of Zeus and Hera, she ignored it. She did not want to leave her house for a silly wedding. Every guest who had been invited went except Chilon. When Zeus found out, he was furious, and he raced to Chilon's home. He threw her and her house into the river, changing her into a tortoise who would forever have to carry her house with her wherever she went. I'm going to come down to this green box, fossils and myths. Researchers believe that many tales of mythical creatures actually came from ancient people finding dinosaur bones. Ancient fossil hunters measured, collected, and displayed these finds in temples. These may have been the basis for such mythical creatures such as centaurs, griffons, and giants. And in the picture, you see Asclepius, the god of medicine, cares for an ill, bedridden patient with help from two willing assistants. Okay, and this part is called Animals and Plants. The ancient Greeks were mostly hunters and farmers who worked closely with animals and plants in their daily lives. Many animals and plants played important roles in mythology. Myths explained how they came into existence and what special abilities each one had. All creatures were thought to be created by the gods. Goats, bulls, and snakes were common animals in many myths. Female goats were often mother figures, such as the she-goat who nursed Zeus as a baby. Bulls were the symbol of strength and power, such as the bull that Heracles defeated. Snakes could be helpful or harmful in Greek myths. Snakes often protected infants or were a source of wisdom. Asclepius, Apollo's son, learned medicine by watching one serpent use herbs to bring another back to life. Plants were seen as a symbol of life and rebirth. Often flowers or trees sprang up where titans, demigods, or mortals died. One titan was transformed into a fig tree by his mother Gaia. Herbs were thought to have magical powers. They were used for charms, potions, and drugs. Some, such as aconite, were poisonous. On the right, after they were married, Melanon and Atalanta often hunted together. They killed their prey with short spears, as shown here. Atalanta and Melanon. The apple was an important fruit in Greek myths. Attractive and sweet, it often symbolized love and marriage. A beautiful princess named Atalanta was forced by her father to marry. She refused to marry unless the man could beat her in a race. If he failed, she would kill him. A young man named Melanon fell in love with her, and he asked the goddess Aphrodite for help. The goddess gave him 3 golden apples, which he threw on the ground in front of Atalanta as they raced. She slowed down to pick the apples. Melanon won the race, and he and Atalanta married. In the green box, it says the underworld. The deepest part of the underworld was called Tartarus. This was the place where sinners were punished. As the punishment for the crimes against the gods, Sisyphus was forced to spend eternity rolling a heavy boulder up a steep hill in Tartarus, only to have it roll down again and have to start all over. And in the picture on the left, Sharon, the ferryman, takes 2 souls across the river Styx from Earth to Hades. On the side here, it says land and sea. Myths were used to explain the geography of the area and its importance. When the gods created the landscape of ancient Greece, they filled it with rugged mountains and surrounded it with sea filled with islands. Rivers were the homes of the river gods. The most famous rivers were the 5 in Hades. The river Styx formed the boundary or edge between the underworld and earth. It circled Hades 9 times and had special powers. The gods swore oaths on the river. It was also the same river that the baby Achilles was dipped into to become immortal. High places were regarded by the Greeks as sacred. Gods lived on the top of mountains. Mount Olympus is the highest mountain in Greece. So this was where the oldest and most powerful gods lived. After the gods defeated the Titans, the mountains formed and the gods moved into a palace on top of it. There was no wind, rain, or snow on this mountain, and the air was pure. Many myths were based there. And Achilles' heel. Ancient Greeks believed that on mountains where the gods lived, water nymphs and streams would pass on their healing wherever they touched the water. The myth of Achilles supported this belief. Achilles was educated by the wise Chiron on Mount Pelion and grew up to be a handsome, brave warrior. He was able to survive many fierce battles because of his training and also because, as an infant, his mother, The- Thetis, had dipped him into the river Styx. Every part of his body that touched the water was protected. However, his mother had held him by the heel to lower him into the water, so this heel had been left dry. Achilles died in battle when an arrow pierced his heel, the only spot where he was not immortal. So the picture on the right says Achilles was devoted to his friend Patroclus and bandaged the wounds he received in battle. But Patroclus was mortal and soon died. While Achilles believed he himself was immortal, today we talk of a person's weak spot as their Achilles heel. Other mountains were also important in Greek myths. Mount Pelion was where the centaurs lived. One particular wise centaur named Chirot taught some of the great Greek heroes, such as Hercules and Achilles. In the picture you see above, it says here, King Odysseus and his men sailed past the supernatural mermaid like sirens whose songs they believe lured sailors to their death. A link to today. Plato, a Greek philosopher, wrote that a great civilization once existed at a place called Atlantis. He said that it had sunk beneath the water in a single day and night of misfortune. Recent research shows that there may have been an actual natural disaster and the lost city of Atlantis did exist. All right, so this is called natural disasters. With volcanoes and earthquakes in the mountains and tsunamis and violent storms at sea, ancient Greeks had many good reasons to be afraid. Death and destruction from these natural disasters led them to believe that they were the work of angry gods. Greece is located where the Earth's crust or surface is fragile. Earthquakes have been felt here for thousands of years, causing monuments and buildings to fall. These were very frightening events for ancient Greeks. Myths explain that earthquakes were a result of Poseidon, the god of the sea, being so angry with humankind that he struck the ground with his trident, causing it to shake. Often these earthquakes caused another natural disaster, tsunamis. These giant waves can form when an earthquake occurs under the sea. A wall of water comes rushing ashore, sweeping everyone and everything away. To calm Poseidon, ancient Greeks made offerings to him, usually sacrificing a bull or an ox. Sailors often made offerings and said prayers to Poseidon before beginning a trip to sea, asking him to keep the waters calm and smooth. The Hecatochairs were three giants who were responsible for violent storms or hurricanes. They were given homes in deep rivers or the sea and allowed storms to brew when the gods called for them. The active and extinct volcanoes have created many islands in the sea surrounding Greece. In about 1600 BCE, a volcanic eruption on the island of Santorini wiped out a colony of Minoans, who were a highly advanced civilization at that time. Poseidon and Typhon. Storms, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions were only some of the punishments that angry gods inflicted on humans. Poseidon and his two brothers Zeus and Hades decided to divide the world between them, each taking 1/3. Zeus was to rule the heavens, Hades the underworld, and Poseidon the seas. Poseidon had a temper and was quick to get angry and seek revenge. When sailors did not respect him, he sent storms and caused shipwrecks and drownings. He was also able to make the earth shake violently when he was upset, causing earthquakes. Zeus was challenged by Typhon, the son of Gaia, and Tartarus. Typhon was a fierce creature who had snakes for legs and dragon heads instead of fingers. He tried to defeat Zeus to become ruler of the gods and mortals, but Zeus used a flash of lightning to conquer and imprison him under Mount Etna. There, Typhon still rages with anger, causing boiling fire to come out of the mountain and throw fiery rocks into the sky. On the left is Poseidon, the Greek god of the seas, known to the ancient Romans as Neptune. He's usually shown holding a three-pronged trident.